Hello and welcome to another crit race. This time we're at Devens Grand Prix, presented by Conti's Bike Shop, as you can see with the ads here. This is the Cat 4-5 race. Nice, beautiful Saturday morning. Not too hot yet. Blue skies, nice and sunny. Put the sunscreen on before the race. Don't want to get burnt. Let's talk about the course a little bit as we roll off in the beginning here. So we've got your classic kind of four-corner crit. For the most part, the three of the corners, nothing to speak of. You can kind of pedal your way through them here. But there is a bit of elevation here. We just came off the start there, and as you'll see in a few corners, we've got quite a little hill here. Not too bad on its own, but doing it 19 times back to back to back certainly adds up, and you get to feel it in your legs over time. It also is right after a nice tight corner from a little downhill, which means that carrying speed into that corner is absolutely critical. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we show some of the racecraft and tactics and thinking that I'm doing as I'm going through this race. Luckily, I think a lot of the time I do have enough headspace to kind of think tactically as much as my fitness allows me, which is smart. And so here, coming out of turn 2, we've got a little bit of a downhill, pick up a little speed here. So it's nice, and I mean, ideally I would be more in the draft here, but I am also, a little bit of a bigger guy, and also I was considering kind of trying to tail gun a little bit, try and save energy where I can, because the field, when it comes into these corners, especially the third corner, kind of accordions a little. And as I was saying, with carrying all of the speed that you can into that hill, it's really nice to be able to choose your own line and not have to be grabbing brakes behind someone and spin all of that speed back up to get up the hill every single time. And of course, you don't always get the chance to do that, and we'll see a couple opportunities like here. Not too bad, not really grabbing much brake, although still getting used to the corner, trying to get comfortable with how much speed I can carry into it. I was able to take a practice lap before, but it's been a year since I've ridden this beyond that one practice lap, so trying to feel out how much grip I have, and today, tons of grip. Beautiful weather, like I said, dry pavement, not too bad in the corner, at least no dirt or sand or anything like that I saw. So for the next couple laps, I kind of just stick with the pack, try and stay in the draft as much as possible, and we'll just kind of fast forward through here until we get to some more interesting things to talk about. So a lap later, coming into that big hill corner, shout out to my fiance Mari for taking a pretty fun video here. We've got a couple other videos, but I think this one fits the best here, so you get a chance to kind of see from the side here what this looks like.
Hey, go Andrew, go!
This corner was, like I mentioned, super consequential. I mean, you have to think about carrying as much speed as possible. It's a great opportunity to attack the group because they're not getting nearly as much of a draft coming up the hill with you. So if you have the strength, it's a good way to kind of try and get away or hurt the group that you're with. And unfortunately in this race, there was also a crash on the last lap, actually. I don't have any footage of it, but I did hear that everyone was able to walk away of their own strength, it sounded like, which is always good to hear. These races, we're all out here to have fun, have a good time, and so it's always good when folks are staying safe. And I do think that in this field, at least, we're all amateurs, obviously. So generally speaking, I think there's a lot of safe behavior. And if there's stuff that's unsafe, it's oftentimes, a mistake or something where, someone didn't know that it was unsafe to do something that they were doing. And it's a learning opportunity, where these are learning races. So we all come out and have a good time and breathe really heavy and get really sweaty. Let's jump forward again. So I'm letting a little bit of a gap here coming into that corner before the hill intentionally, because I want to be able to carry some speed, and I'm worried that the people in front of me are going to kind of grab some brakes. But someone sees this gap and, dives right in, which, kind of sucks for me because then I have to grab some brakes. I'm not sure how much they're going to brake and if they're going to come, all the way through the line there to the curb and kind of cut me off. And I'd much rather, not crash and have to grab some brake. So that kind of stinks, and it means that I have to, kind of step on the pedals a little bit, and then he ends up losing the place to me anyway. So that won't be the last time that we see that particular rider too. Another lap forward, and you can see how strung out the field is here. They've been kind of accelerating on that back straight, and we are, I'm a little bit further off the back than I'd like to be, so I kind of stand up put as many watts down as I kind of can for this hill without blowing up, and trying to not lose too much space. There's some other folks coming around me, which I think is a good opportunity, so I kind of stand up, give it another go to get in their draft, and try and not get left behind here. And it's hard to see here, but it actually kicks up again for another slight incline right here as I'm coming around this rider. So you get a little bit of respite right at the finish line where it flattens out, but then, if you're too dead, then you lose it right on that last hill. So it's important to kind of save a little bit for that. And also it's a good opportunity to kind of kick over the hill and really attack the people who are tired, if you have the energy, that is. So I'm trying pretty desperately to claw this back. I'm so close to the group, but they just have a little bit more speed to me. I'm kind of doing the pain dangle here just outside of the draft, but still putting in, enough effort to keep them in sight. This rider who was in my draft there comes around, and I'm pretty grateful to have someone else to work with here to try and get across. But of course, he kind of speeds off here, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to try and take a rip-in line through this corner and just catch back up on the hill, and let's see how I do. Touching zero brake, go all the way to the curb a little bit, stand up. Yeah, not too bad. I think I probably could have carried a little bit more speed, honestly. And they're just within reach. They're so close. I just kind of got to keep pushing here. And luckily, the group kind of expands out, accordions a little bit into the corner, which I think kind of gets me back into the draft here. Another rider comes back to fill in this gap here, giving me a little bit more respite from the wind, which I greatly appreciate because I really need to rest. My heart rate's pretty high, and I know that I can't let this group get away if I want a chance at the podium. Not that I'm really thinking about the podium at this point, but obviously, you race to win. Coming up this hill here, I have a little bit more kick, and so I take a peek here to see if maybe I want to come around this rider, but we're about to hit the flat where the draft benefit is pretty useful, and I think maybe it's the wrong choice to get back in the draft, although honestly I'm still doing 250, 300 watts in the draft here, so I'm not sure coming around would have been a better choice. In the end, I'm not able to stick with the main group here. There's just a lot of really strong guys there, and a Cat 4-5 field always has a pretty wide variety of strengths and always kind of gets a little crazy. And in this field, there was, a number of lapped riders eventually. Luckily, I managed to stick on the main lap, not get lapped this time. I think last year I did get lapped. I definitely wasn't with the main group last year, and I got a much better result this year, which I was pretty happy for. But that's all spoilers. We'll see at the end. So I'm definitely a bigger guy, but I do think one of my strengths on this course is conserving speed in that corner when I have a good line. Because in this case, you saw there was a pretty big gap on those two riders, but without even putting any power in, just not braking and taking a good line, conserving energy, I'm able to get back up to them and close that gap down pretty immediately. And with that extra energy and having had a little bit of rest during that last lap, I think to myself, okay, now's the chance to try and bridge across. I'm not super concerned about towing these riders with me. Honestly, I'm actually probably preferred that they do stick with me and they work with me, actually. And in this case, they do. It's always good to get a couple pulls out of people. And when you're in the back of the group here and you're not in the main group, I think people are generally more willing to work together. Doesn't make a ton of sense to attack a group of 3 or 4 riders when you're off the back. You're not even competing for the top 10 places. So at this point, it's just head down and gotta chase back the group as much as I can and try and not lose as much time. So let's fast forward a little bit and see how we do. So I've been doing a lot of solo pulling myself here, definitely feeling hurt, but just trying to pace myself and do a nice consistent effort. I think at one point I look back and I see 1 or 2 people in my draft, but they had just chased on, so I wasn't sure how much I could ask for them to pull. And I'm pretty comfortable taking my own lines through these corners. But then at this point, this rider kind of jumps across over me, which was very surprising. And I had another rider in the draft with me. We both were kind of looking around at each other, a little confused. Not sure tactically what this rider is thinking. Maybe just not happy with the pace I'm setting and thinks that they can, go a lot faster. But as we'll see, I think, even if my pace isn't exactly what they want, working in the draft and not, jumping over me is probably going to be more efficient. And I definitely would have been happy to take turns. And like I mentioned, we'll see this rider some more. So it's my own personal rival. Nothing personal more, but like a chance to race against someone. I think here, if I remember correctly, I give the elbow flick. And I've got 2 riders with me now to kind of chase things back here. Get back to that rider who jumped across. And the rest here feels really nice. I mean, obviously we're doing, 300 watts to get up over the hill, but then in the downhill, being able to sit in the draft here is excellent. So big shout out to 149 and 144 here for helping stitch this back together and keeping all of us from getting lapped, I hope. So coming into this downhill here, I see we've got a little bit of a gap, and I'm not quite sure why the gap's opening up here. I assume that 144 is probably feeling pretty gassed. So I catch the draft a little bit, and then once it flattens out a little, put some watts down, try and come around and catch up to this rider who jumped earlier. You know, I think it's easier. We've been talking about him a lot. Let's give him a name. Let's call him Steve. His name's probably not Steve. I actually don't know what his name is. But for the purposes of this video and to make things easier, let's call him Steve. So we're going to be chasing across to Steve here, who's got a little gap on us. You know, it's always nice to have a little carrot dangling on the stick in front of you. So Steve, in this case, gets to be our carrot. And I'm hoping that, again, I'm able to efficiently take this corner, and being on the front of the group means I get to take exactly the line I want to take, you know, corner to corner, edge to edge there, closing the gap down a little bit. Not sure if it's, you know, efficiency or more just having a little bit of extra kick on the lap, and I've got some more speed, so I decided, you know, I'm coming around. I don't want to, you know, chill in this, what's pretty much non-existent draft and lose time and speed. So back on the front of the group here, I think when I look back here, there's a bit of a gap to even the riders who I was with, which I was a little worried about because it'd be nice to, you know, stick with the group and roll turns. And I didn't really want to drop everyone on the hill, but I also didn't want to take it too easy because you can lose a lot of time there. So let's see how we do. So I managed to catch up to this other rider, had the chance to chat with him afterwards, and this guy's name is actually Jeff. I'm not making that name up. And it was a pleasure to meet you, Jeff, if you're watching this. I found out later that he was a lapped rider, but honestly, the field gets so blown up in these 4 or 5 crits, especially with a big group like this. You know, if I think there were 40 or 50 riders here, you're never quite sure who's lapped or even who's lapping you. Generally, you kind of know when you're getting lapped because they just have so much more strength from behind after, you know, half the race. But when you catch up to someone, you're never sure if they're just gassed from, you know, getting blown up on the hill too many times or what, or if they got in a crash. You know, there's a million things. So I stop and ask him, you know, let's work together. And, you know, he gives me a little bit of a pull, and I hop on the front and give him a pull here through the little uphill downhill. So I've been working with Jeff here for a little bit, and if I remember correctly, I think there might have been 1 or 2 other people in the draft, including our friend Steve towards the end here. I can't remember if he was intentionally skipping poles, but again, he does this attack here on this downhill. Not the first time that we saw this kind of same spot for Steve. Again, no idea if his name is Steve, but just makes it convenient here. And you can kind of hear it here, but I'm chatting with the other group, the other guys that I'm, you know, working with at this point. Like, not really sure what he's doing. Once again, kind of a bit confused on the attack. I guess, you know, my best guess is just not happy with the pace. You know, it's a race, wants to use the legs as much as possible and carry as much speed. Maybe he thinks he can do a long attack and beat us to the line. We're coming into 2 laps to go, and let's see how it works out for him. So we're on the last lap here. Hear the bell ringing, and as you can see, we've just barely managed to catch up to Steve with the last lap. And I think this is, you know, pretty good time to catch him. You know, much better than catching him after the last lap. You can see he's kind of still trying to dig, push his way through this hill. But at some point here, he looks behind or hears probably my free hub. and notices that, we're sitting in the draft. And I think he knows that he doesn't really want to tow us. Being on the front here on the last lap is certainly not great. So he's definitely slowing down here. Looking behind, checking. And so I'm worried that he's going to give us an attack, and I'm just not quite sure where it's going to be. I don't want to jump him here. If anything, I'm kind of thinking my ideal spot is to attack into that last corner, make sure I get to be the first one into it, and then try and sprint up the hill and beat him to the line. But I don't really get too much of a choice, because right into this second corner, he stands up and just tries to sprint off the front into this downhill, which, as I mentioned before, is kind of close to where he was attacking before. I'm not sure it's a great spot to attack into this downhill, because the draft benefits are so good, and on the front especially, it's hard to get away and kind of break that tug. And so once I catch up to him, I decide, I'm just going to come around and pass him. This is a little earlier than I kind of wanted to get on the front, but I think I've got a gap from the guys behind too, because they're pretty beat up from working the whole time, like myself. But I've got a little bit in the legs. The legs felt really good today. I was really happy for that. Definitely been, all of my training was leading up to this race. This kind of marked my A race. I was looking forward to trying to get a good result here. I take a peek behind me before we go into this final corner, and I see I've got a pretty solid gap. So I am pushing here. And if you notice, there was actually someone standing just inside the road at that light pole there, because I think that's where the crash was. And I assume that's what these riders are doing. They're coming up to cross the finish line on their last lap after crashing. And I'm just pushing, putting as many watts down as I can, and managed to cross the line in front of that group. So good effort, Steve, but unfortunately, I got the better of you today. But it was a good race. A lot of fun. Great power numbers for me. I think this was my second best ever 30-minute power output, which is always nice to see. Good to know that the training is working. And I think just the repeatability felt a lot better than it has in past years. So something that FTP doesn't necessarily show super well. But just doing the hill over and over again, I felt like I was able to kind of, give it more towards the end of the race, which made a huge difference. And I think was the reason I didn't get lapped. So a lot of fun. Big shout out to, Conti's Bikes for sponsoring this, and the B2C2 group for organizing it. I'll definitely be back next year. If you have any questions or comments, throw them down in the bottom. And as always, thank you for watching.